Thanks to everyone for joining us again. We do have some more sessions scheduled coming up. Not next week. Next week is our Growing the North conference. We're going to take a week away from the Serving Up Knowledge and serve up knowledge in a different way, all 3 days, next Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So if you're interested in Growing the North, growingthenorth.com with all the information there. But we're back February 25th, and that'll be 910 Incorporated, providing Facebook newsfeed optimization. On March 4th, it'll be Food Photography 101. That'll be with Chris Beauchamp for Beauchamp Photography. And then on March 11th, these are all Thursdays, it'll be the top 10 HR policies that you need, and that'll be with Casely Consulting. So we're booked up till March 11th, and then we've got a few more irons in the fire as far as ideas for sessions. And then we're always looking for more sessions or even ideas. If you have suggestions, maybe you'd like to see someone provide some information for a skill set. That's the idea of these sessions, is to walk away with a specific skill set and just try and help you help your business a little bit and help you as a business person in our community. Today, we are so pleased to be joined by Tertius and Shanna from Fusion Business Solutions, and they will be providing some very important information in this day and age about cybersecurity. So without any further ado, I will let Shanna and Tertius take it away.
Well, thank you, Tom. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, perfect. So I want to welcome everyone and thank you for taking time out of your busy and nowadays cold days to join us for this Serving Up the Knowledge session about cybersecurity. I would like to thank the City of Grande Prairie and the Grande Prairie and Area Chamber of Commerce for their valuable and continued support for small businesses during this bumpy and tumultuous times. Our goal is that by the end of this workshop, you should have a better understanding of today's cybersecurity threats and steps you can take to protect yourself and your organization today. I'm Tertius with Fusion Business Solutions, a 100% locally owned business IT solutions company, and I'm joined by Shanna Utgard from our cybersecurity partner, Defendify. One of the principles we'll talk about today is how an effective cybersecurity defense requires multiple layers of foundation, technology, and culture. At Fusion Business Solutions, we have talented people and strong processes along with traditional technology solutions. But as you will learn today, the cyber landscape is constantly changing, so we've added additional technology solutions that are delivered through Defendify's platform, an all-in-one SaaS cybersecurity platform designed specifically for smaller businesses. And with that, I'll turn it over to Shanna.
Thank you, Tertius. And as always, pleasure engaging with you. And thank you, everybody, again, for taking some time out of your day. The goal today is to leave you with a skill set that can help protect your business digitally. As Tertius mentioned, he's with Fusion Business Solutions, one of our preferred partners. I'm Shanna Utgard. I'm the success manager here at Defendify. So today we're going to dig into some incidents that have happened, tell a couple of stories. We're going to talk about where the threats are actually coming from, and then we're going to provide you with a lot of tips and tricks on what you can do to help protect your bottom line, your reputation, and probably even use in your personal life as well. And then we'll finish off by talking about how you can apply a defense in-depth approach to protect your organization. I'm going to warn you all in advance. I go through a lot of information in this presentation very quickly, and I talk fast. So good thing this is being recorded if you want to go back and listen to anything. And just to make things a little easier so we're not distracted, I'm going to turn my video off and we're going to rock and roll. So to start off with a couple stories here, the first one we're going to talk about is the Anthem breach. This affected a lot of folks. There were 78.8 million people that lost their personal health information. It all started with a phishing email that came into the organization. An employee interacted with it, and it allowed remote access to the network. An alarming detail about this breach is that it took Anthem almost a year to discover that an attacker was even inside their network. You can see at the bottom there that the mean time to identify a breach, on average, a cyber attacker can be inside a network for 197 days before they are discovered. We like this story because it's close to home for us. Defendify is based down here in Maine. There are only 1 million people in our entire state, but we're still having a lot of cyber attacks happening here. This is a story about the Maine Office of Information Technology. They decided that they were going to use a tool to move a database. It was a web-based tool, and ended up putting the confidential private information of 2,100 foster parents on a public facing website. And you see at the bottom of this slide, the statistic is that 43% of data breaches are caused by an insider threat. Later, we're going to cover what that actually is. This is an interesting one. This is MacEwan University up in Alberta. They were doing construction on their campus. They got an email from their construction company saying, hey, we're changing banks in a few weeks. We want to make sure that, your payment for those future invoices are sent to the right bank. And that communication went back and forth for weeks between the school finance department and the contracting company. And the university paid their contractor invoices. But instead of paying the person doing the work, wire transfers totaling $11.8 million were sent to cyber attackers who had been posing as that construction company all along. What's amazing to me is that a crime this significant was accomplished simply by email and could be accomplished anywhere in the world. If you're like most business owners, you probably think, because of all the things that we read in the news, that a cyber attack isn't likely to happen to you, or that you don't have any information that an attacker might want. We hear so much about these big organizations being victims of cybercrime, but when we actually look at the numbers, 68% of small businesses, 500 employees or less, have experienced a cyber attack in the last 12 months. And 50% of attacks are focused on small to mid-sized companies. These attackers know that the smaller guys don't have the same types of protections that the large enterprise organizations do. And as far as what types of information they're after, every organization has sensitive data. The number one thing that I hear is, well, we don't store credit cards, so we're okay. There's a lot more to it. When you start talking to organizations about what type of data they need to be protecting, one way to think about it is, would I be comfortable posting this information on a public website for everyone to read? If the answer is no, it's sensitive information and it needs to be protected. So looking at some other types of information that you might store, personally identifiable information for your customers, your employees, tax records. You might have protected health information that you need to keep confidential, bank information, wire transfer details, even things like vendor agreements and price lists, your legal documents, your contracts. If you're a nonprofit, you have a lot of donor information and financial information. So if you wouldn't want it on a website, you want to protect it. Who are we protecting it from? These cyber threats are coming from a variety of different areas. So in the top left, we have our cyber criminals that are causing their crimes to make money. In the top right, we have hacktivists who are causing those attacks because maybe they don't like a company or a political party or what your organization stands for. Anonymous is a great example of that. In the bottom left, we've been hearing about this a lot in the news recently. These are cyber soldiers from other countries. They may even be state sponsored, and they're going after the United States and Canada, public, private, and government organizations. Our countries are doing the same thing in the other direction in a defensive nature. In the bottom right, anybody recognize this guy from the movies? If you think you know who he is, go ahead and throw it in the chat box. And that way I also know that you know where the chat box is. This guy is our insider threat. Insider threats are employees, contractors, ex-employees, and ex-contractors who have or had valid access to the network and data. Their actions could be malicious, but oftentimes they just do things in error. So a great example was that IT person who accidentally put the main foster parents on the website. Sure, it wasn't intentional. Being an insider threat can be pretty simple. I go to send an email to Tom and I start typing in TOM. I hit enter, it auto-populates the wrong Tom, and I've just sent confidential information because I'm moving too quickly. That's as easy as it is to become an insider threat. And that image is the guy from Jurassic Park. He's the one that stole the dinosaur DNA and was trying to sell it. We mentioned the cyber criminals that are causing their crimes to make money. This gives you an idea of what data sells for in the dark web. This is not a place that you're going to get to with Google Chrome or Internet Explorer. That people have to use Tor browsers, and they're supposedly hiding their identity. There's all kinds of chat rooms and forums, and that's where people go to do things they shouldn't do and sell things they shouldn't sell, including information. The more information that goes along with a record, the more valuable it is. So you can see Social Security, non-financial logins, not a lot of money there. Financial logins, credit card with full info, so it comes with more than just the credit card number and the code on the back. Medical records continue to top the charts. We see this over and over again because they include a lot of information: health information, social security numbers, your personally identifiable information, your address. We also have insurance information, so it can be used for insurance fraud. And we've even seen things like extortion of a CEO of a company because they have an undisclosed medical condition and they don't want anybody to know about it. So continuously up to $1,000 for those medical records. There's a lot of different tactics that these cyber criminals use. The most popular one is social engineering. I like to call this people hacking. We've done a really good job of securing our networks, but our people are still the biggest vulnerability. The most prevalent of social engineering attacks are phishing emails. You've probably received one of these before. Over 90% of successful cyber attacks start with a phishing email. So this is where an email comes into your organization and is trying to get your employees to interact with it in some way, shape, or form. Back in the day, it was kind of a shotgun approach, targeting large numbers of people at one time. You may have gotten a type of email from a real-life Nigerian prince who's got millions of dollars to get out of the country. Believe it or not, we do still see this quite often. It brings in like $700 million a year. Crazy. Nowadays, though, we're seeing these phishing attacks getting much more sophisticated and professional. So they're using actual company logos. They imitate real emails that are sent out. They're signed to your friends at Netflix. So they're really watching what those companies are doing and imitating it. It's not as easy as just looking for bad grammar anymore. And the other thing is that a lot of these attacks are starting with an investigation. So these cyber criminals are researching on LinkedIn, they're on Facebook, they're on your company webpage. Spear phishing is the act of sending specific emails to well-researched targets and purporting to be a trusted sender. So their aim there is to either infect devices with malware or convince those targets to hand over some information or money. So they're doing a lot of legwork ahead of time. They want to learn about the hierarchy, the relationships that your organization has, what your job responsibilities are, so they can target an email specifically to you. So they're looking for new job updates. As soon as somebody goes on LinkedIn and says they've got a new position, they're a prime target for these cyber attacks. They're new, they're eager to please. They're also unfamiliar with your internal processes. It's very easy for them to look and see that, you're in this role, you might report to this person. So I'm going to make an email that looks like it's coming from your boss. They also, there's a lot of information that we can see from those types of databases. If your marketing team's doing a really great job promoting your company, like in that McEwen University construction example, there's even more information out there for the criminals to utilize. We see a lot with, when we were able to do them, live events. So we would see the company post something on social media that says, "Hey, it's Jim. I'm at this live event. I need a giveaway for my booth. Can you go out and buy $1,500 worth of gift cards and send me the numbers? I'm really busy. There's a lot of people here. I'm not going to be able to respond." So just be aware of the type of information that you're sharing on social media, because these attackers watch for this type of information. Sometimes they need a little bit more information. So they might perform what's called pretexting, where they're trying to create a good pretext or fabricated scenario that they could use to get more information to stage their secondary attacks. So a lot of the time they will pose as senior leadership of the organization, HR personnel, finance people, your IT team. And then once they gather all that information, they perform the spear phish. Even with the most expensive and comprehensive enterprise level spam filters, these types of emails are still going to get through. When they land on an inbox, these criminals are trying to get you and your employees to do one of four things usually. Fill out a form to get some information out of you. They want you to click on a link, which is often going to take you to a malicious website. They want you to open a file. A lot of those have attachments, Word, Excel, PDF are all very popular. Or they want you to perform some type of action. So maybe it's sending a sensitive document or paying an invoice, initiating a wire transfer, or sending over some type of confidential information. One thing these requests usually have in common is an emotional response. So that's the first thing I always tell people to check for. Is that email causing some type of emotional reaction from you? Is it, fear, urgency, doubt, reward? Does the message say that the person is unable to be contacted, yet the task they're asking you to complete is urgent? Do you stand to gain or lose something from that email? Also, curiosity. I've seen emails that are like, "I can't believe you would do this. I saw this picture of you." People are like, "Do what?" And they open the picture. Curiosity and greed. Some of the good examples of that are, emails that say like, company payroll with an attachment. People are like, I want to find out what everybody else makes. Helpfulness is also an emotion that they play off of. So if it looks like a request from your manager, especially those new employees, people are eager to please. They want to be helpful. And then, any type of urgency there, like your credit card's been declined or there's some type of time limit or expiration date on that request. It even goes further than computers nowadays. Text messaging is also an attack method. These are examples of actual text messages I have received on my personal cell phone in the last couple of months. So we've got, your card's blocked. So there's kind of a penalty and urgency there. Like, oh my gosh, if I can't use my card, I can't buy anything. How am I going to order on Amazon? Due to the pandemic, Netflix is giving everyone a free 1-year subscription to help you stay at home. So there's a positive reward. That's so nice of Netflix. When you click on that link, it takes you to a page that looks like Netflix, but it's not. They want you to enter your credentials in. You have one message from AT&T. Visit this weird shortened link. It's very easy to figure out who someone's cell phone provider is if you do a quick Google search. So that one is very vague. What could this message be about? And then a lot through the holidays, we saw these shipping scams, UPS and FedEx notifications because so many people were ordering online instead of going through the stores. So they capitalize on those types of things. It's been fascinating to watch the way that this has unfolded during the pandemic. And the other attack method is through the phone. So phishing is a combination of voice and phishing. So they're trying to use those same deception tactics to get you to reveal that confidential information over the phone. So key targets here are assistants, receptionists, finance team members. We see these come in as help desk personnel. They call you up and rattle off some technical alphabet soup and ask you for your password. Or can you do me a favor? Can you click on this link for me? I need remote access to your computer. Could pretend to be some type of third party or vendor. If anybody's calling and asking for any type of information, hang up and call back on a known and verified number. If they call up and say that, your bank account's been blocked or there's suspicious activity, hang up, call the bank back on a known phone number, go directly to the vendor or company website, go through one of those known communication channels. Nobody will ever fight you on the phone if it's actually your bank and there really is a problem with one of your accounts and you tell that person, I'm going to call you back. They will not fight you. If they start fighting you, it's definitely a scammer and hang up. So if overall we could go through how to look at links, how to, view headers of an email, but you don't need to. The most important thing here, because I can make an email look like it's coming from Tom, and a lot of people wouldn't know any better. So if you get an unexpected email with an attachment asking you to perform some type of action that asks you to fill in a form, click on a link, open an attachment, pay an invoice, or give any type of confidential information, reach out to that sender and verify using a different method. One of the important pieces of this is your contact that is sending you something. Let's say you work with a vendor and on the 10th of the month, every single month, they send you an invoice. The attackers, if they're able to actually get access to that client's or that vendor's email address, and they're actually lurking in their inbox, they can see those types of patterns. They can go back and look out and say, oh, this vendor sends out invoices every month on the 10th of the month. Coming in the next 10th of the month, they can send out an invoice that instead of their payment information and details, it has the attacker's payment details. So if they actually are able to compromise the email, any of those attachments could have different wiring instructions. They could have malicious. So I always tell people to reach out and verify anytime you receive an attachment, anytime you're asked to do one of these types of actions, because they could actually have their email compromised. So why do these attackers go through all of this effort? What are they trying to accomplish here? A couple different things. Business email compromise, which is what we just talked about. We'll talk about again. Delivering malware through those attachments, ransomware delivery, or harvesting your credentials. So here's a couple examples of some business email compromise. So some of the popular ones are a bogus invoice scheme. So the attackers, get into the email and they pretend to be, a supplier or a vendor, or they're requesting a fund transfer for a payment, and it's going to an account that's owned by the fraudsters instead. CEO impersonation or CEO fraud. you probably have seen this in your own organization. This is a big popular one. Your employees get an email that looks like it's coming from you, and it's asking them to perform some type of action, whether it's send some money, I need you to perform a task, can you give me your personal cell phone number, can you go out and buy some gift cards? If you've seen something like that before, go ahead and drop it down in the chat. Let us know. Account compromise. So that's where the account is actually hacked and it's used to send out different invoices or malicious attachments. Oftentimes, these attackers will put rules in place where any emails that were sent out are automatically deleted, and then any replies are forwarded off to an inbox that they own, and they'll send out malicious attachments or redirect your wire transfers. Third party impersonation. So they might, pretend to be, like your lawyer or someone in a position of authority, and they're, asking you about confidential matters. A lot of the times these types of requests come in through the email or phone and are usually at the end of the business day when people are trying to pack up and get out of there and they're, have less time and less patience. And then data theft. So depending on what type of information that you encounter in your job. So a lot of the times HR, bookkeeping people are targeted to obtain personally identifiable information, tax statements for employees or executives, that type of information. In attachments and malware, we see a lot of different types of these. It could be anything from a voicemail message that you've received. If you have some type of hiring role, they might include a resume because they know part of your job responsibilities are to open up and review resumes. If you're not doing that, you're not doing your job, right? So they're going to send you a malicious attachment that looks like it's coming from a resume. It could be payment information, invoices, receipts, purchase orders, quote requests, price information. We see some W-2 and tax information. During the pandemic, one of the worst ones that I saw was an email that went out to healthcare employees, and it said that your position had been terminated. Click here to view your severance package and the reason why, which was just, again, very emotional and just an absolutely tragic type of approach. So they were opening up this attachment and then it was delivering malware. HR and benefits information. So we see things like, our company paid time off policy has changed. Please click here to review. And scans and faxes are another example. Oftentimes, well, too often actually, these documents get past antivirus programs with no problem. The phishing emails themselves usually contain a sense of urgency. The documents themselves or the email will usually step you through exactly what they want you to do here. So their goal is to get you to enable content or enable macros. If the users fail to enable those macros, that attack's going to be unsuccessful. So they'll give you some extra guidance here. When you click that button to enable the content or to enable macros, what happens is that the malware that's embedded in there is going to start functioning. It runs these little bits of code and it could do a lot of different things. It can allow the attackers to have remote control of your device. It can allow them to install a keylogger where they're keeping track of everything that you're typing in, whether it's financial information, passwords, or malicious macros in these emails have become an increasingly common way of delivering ransomware. If you haven't heard of it yet, ransomware is a type of malware that infects your computer. You get this screen that pops up saying that all of your files are encrypted, and you get a message saying, unless you pay us X amount of money in cryptocurrency, then we'll give you a code, and then you'll be able to unlock the data. Oftentimes, this ransomware is programmed to travel laterally across the network. So if I get an infection on my computer, it could move to Tertius, it could move to Tom, it could affect our servers, our storage devices, our backups. One of the biggest problems with ransomware is downtime. So hopefully you have a great IT team and they have good backups in place, but even still, wiping and restoring all of those machines from the backups takes significant time. And there's often residual lingering effects of that ransomware. Many companies find themselves down for days or weeks at a time. And during that time, you still have all of your normal operating expenses, your payroll, but you're not able to perform any of those job responsibilities. You can't collect payment, you can't provide services, whatever it is your organization does. We're seeing this increase in frequency like nobody's business. Every 14 seconds, a business is getting attacked. So there have been, about 80 different ransomware attacks since we've been on this webinar so far. So many infections just in the last, 20, 22-ish minutes. One of the reasons why is because there are actually ransomware as a service kits that are available to purchase on the dark web. It's kind of like multi-level marketing for ransomware. So the malware creators make these ransomware kits. Anybody, a Dorito dusted teenager in his mom's basement chugging Mountain Dew, can all of a sudden launch these ransomware attacks at businesses. It's very easy to even have support. So if you have a question about why your ransomware kit is not being delivered, they'll help you out with that. And the creator and the executor split that ransom 50-50 down the middle. So we're just seeing a huge increase in this. We've also seen ransomware change over the last 6 months. So it used to be, yeah, I'm the bad guy. I deliver this ransomware infection. I tell you, you need to pay me X amount of money in cryptocurrency, and I'll give you the key to unlock your data. Our IT teams were like, that's cute, but we're just going to restore everything from the backups. We're going to wipe and restore, and we're going to move on with the rest of our day. So the attackers went back to the drawing board. Now what they do is when those little bits of code start functioning, they go in and they take a copy of your data first before you even know that they're in there. So they take that copy. Then the demand changes, and it says, I have your data. I've made a copy of it. Pay me X amount of money to get the key to get it back. Pay me X amount of money more, and I'll delete it off of my servers. Or if you don't want to pay me, I'm going to release your information on the dark web. And now you've got a data breach on your hands. You've got to notify all of your customers. Your reputation takes a hit. You might even have to provide identity monitoring services, depending on the type of information I've taken. So it's one of those things where, you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. You pay the ransom, or do you deal with the data breach notification? Unfortunately, good backups won't help us here. So we'll talk a little while later about what will actually help us. Another thing that the attackers are trying to do is harvest your credentials. So, most common passwords here, you'll see we get a lot of laziness there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, QWERTY, things across the keyboard lines. Researchers wanted to see how easily passwords were able to be cracked. So you can see here in this chart that the number of characters is down the left side. If you have a 5-character password, even if it's a mixture of numbers, upper and lowercase letters, symbols, it can be cracked in a few seconds. If you go down to 15 characters, if it's that mixture, it takes 2 trillion with a T years to crack it. So where everything is headed with passwords is length. The longer the password, the more secure it is. This is a fun little GIF here, or GIF, depending on who you ask. And it will show you how long these passwords take to crack. So complexity is not as great as length. That's a long time to crack. These attackers have software programs that will go in and actually run all different variations of that. These attackers are always after usernames and passwords. So whether they're collecting them directly from a phishing attempt, or you're going to a website where you're entering your credentials in, or they're pulling them off of the dark web. What you see here is some of the largest data breaches that have occurred in recent history. In the middle is the number of accounts that were compromised in the millions. And in every single one on the right-hand side, it's emails and passwords, emails and passwords. These attackers know that even if you haven't logged into MySpace or MyFitnessPal in many years, chances are you are using that password across your more valuable accounts. 73% of online accounts are guarded by duplicated passwords. What this means is I'm a cyber attacker. I go in and I see the Dropbox breach, and Shanna at company.com is using password sunshine123 ! I'm going to take that information and I'm going to go try it across your more valuable accounts. So I'm going to take that username combination and I'm going to try it in your Office 365 account. I'm going to try it on your QuickBooks. I'm going to try it on any application that you might use that houses sensitive information based on the industry that you're in. So the bigger problem is not with password complexity. The bigger problem is with password recycling. So once one of your, if you use sunshine123 as your password across all of your accounts, if it's compromised anywhere in Dropbox, LinkedIn, Adobe, MyFitnessPal, any of those large data breaches, all of your accounts are now vulnerable. So I actually saw a statistic that small businesses use on average 20 software as a service or cloud applications. So it would be nearly impossible to expect you or your employees to remember 20 different unique passwords that are 15 characters long and a mixture of upper and lowercase symbols. So how do you do it? you want to have some tools to help. So we recommend password managers. In the event that one of these unique passwords is breached, you can immediately go in and change that password to a new random unique one without allowing those attackers the ability to access all of your other accounts. One of our recommendations, and Tertius can definitely tell you a little bit more about this, is a solution called LastPass. The great thing about this is you only have to remember one really long, complicated password to get into that password manager. Now, I know since you guys have been paying really good attention through this webinar, you're probably thinking, well, what happens if my password manager password gets compromised, right? One of the most important tips that you should take away from this webinar, if you do nothing other than this one thing, is to turn on two-factor authentication. So we're going to protect that password manager with a second authentication method. So you probably have run into this before. Let's say you log into your bank from a different computer, and before you can get into your account, it's going to send you a text message code, and you have to enter that in after your username and password. You've probably seen that before, right? That is two-factor or multi-factor authentication. So you're going to enter your username and password into your password manager or into any important site that you're logging into. And before you can get in completely, you need to enter some type of code. So it may be sent to you in a text message. Not the best method, but better than nothing. So if the site or application that you are using only has SMS or text codes, still turn it on. One of the next best options is you can have an app running on your phone, and it produces a new random code every 30 seconds. There's a couple that we recommend. Google Authenticator is a popular one. We recommend Authy, AUTHY, and that is a better secure method for two-factor authentication because you can't really intercept that app code. And then there's also other token-based or like a little key fob that you can have that you can carry around that you put into your smartphone or you plug into your computer, and that will get you your two-factor authentication code. So the reason why it's called two-factor or multi-factor is because it's a combination of something that you know, which is your username and your password, and something that you have, which is the code. So even if an attacker can get your password or you're using password one, all lowercase, as soon as they try to log in and they see that they need that second factor, they're going to typically move along to another account. So this is the number one tip that I can give anybody if they want to secure their business or their personal life is turn this on wherever you possibly can. So this is what it would look like instead in that Dropbox to Microsoft 365 example. So we have shanna@company.com. My compromised Dropbox password was sunshine123. They try to use it to log into my Office 365 account, and they're going to get this screen asking to approve a sign-in request, and they can't do it. The other thing is you're going to know when you have sign-in requests. So it could be 2:00 in the morning on a Sunday, and all of a sudden you're getting a weird Microsoft sign-in request, and you're sleeping. You're not trying to log into your email account. And then it just further verifies that you do have information the attackers are after. One of the other tips that you've probably heard, and we do think it's important to explain this because you probably have heard it, but you might not know why, is as you're traveling around, if you can travel around or when we're able to travel around again, and if you're going to coffee shops or restaurants, airports, hotels, you want to avoid connecting to their public Wi-Fi systems. When you connect your device to a public Wi-Fi network, it's now communicating with a bunch of strangers. You have no idea who else is also on those Wi-Fi connections. So they could be running tools or scans against your devices and try to look for vulnerabilities or sniffing and monitoring your network activity. The other risk here is that you could be potentially connecting to something called an evil twin, which in my picture here is when you grow a goatee, you turn evil. But in reality, an evil twin is when an attacker sets up a wireless router named the exact same thing that you would expect the public Wi-Fi to be. So it might be called Starbucks guest Wi-Fi or Marriott Wi-Fi. And they're trying to trick you into connecting to what you believed was being provided by the establishment. But instead, they're down the road. They've got a little device that looks like this, and you're connecting to that device instead. And now these attackers have strong control and visibility over all of your activity that you are doing while they're providing you with internet service. So if you have to travel around for your job, couple different solutions. One great thing that has come out of this pandemic is a lot of companies have understood the importance now of providing company VPNs. So if you have one of those available, awesome. Definitely want to utilize that. Otherwise, the other option, and I was talking earlier this morning with Lauren and showing her I've got 2 different cell phones going on. You can utilize cellular personal hotspots, whether it's from your actual cell phone, it gives you the ability to flip on cellular and you make your own little hotspot, or your wireless providers have these little bricks that will produce a Wi-Fi signal, and you can connect to those instead. One of the best policies, and I know Tom had mentioned one of the upcoming sessions you have is about the top HR policies you need. I hope that you consider this in a technology and data use policy and that is on the list of the top 10. But you want to consider in that technology and data use policy or acceptable use policy whether or not you want to allow company issued devices to communicate on those public Wi-Fi networks. Another policy thing you might want to consider is with the use of USB devices, the little thumb drives, the removable storage devices. This was an interesting study that was done by the University of Illinois. They dropped about 300 of those little USB sticks around campus, and they wanted to see how many people would pick them up and plug them in. Almost half, some within minutes of being dropped. People are really curious what's on them, or they're looking for an owner to be able to return it. A lot of things could go wrong here. There could be all types of malware that's installed on those USB keys. Randomly plugging them into your computer could result in a malware or ransomware infection. The other thing to consider is that if your organization does allow the use of USB keys, know that you run a higher risk of an insider threat. An employee maybe not even being malicious, let's say, they want to get some work done over the weekend. So they take some confidential information or files, off of the server, they download it onto that USB drive. And let's say that USB drive accidentally falls out of their purse sometime over the course of the weekend. We know from the research that someone's going to pick it up. They have 50% chance they're going to plug it into a computer. If there's sensitive information on that USB drive, your organization could find itself in the middle of a data breach. So in our opinion, we think that it's a very high risk for not a lot of reward. So if you don't have to allow these within your organization, if there's not a specific use case that can't be handled with another technology solution, we think that you should disallow the use of USB thumb drives. If you do have to use these for a particular purpose, there are ways to, encrypt them so that you need a special code to be able to get in and view any of the information on them. But we think best practice, if you don't have to, you shouldn't. So we know that having antivirus systems on your computer is really important, but the number one question that we get asked is, isn't my antivirus and my firewall enough? This is one of the biggest challenges in today's cyber landscape. I'm sure you can look back over the last year or so and see how different your business looks from a technology standpoint. The cyber attackers are moving just as fast, if not faster. These cyber attackers are altering and editing their malware so frequently that it's difficult for the antivirus companies to keep up. The way that the traditional antivirus software works is, it goes up into the cloud, it gets all of the new malware that's been detected by that antivirus company. They have a big running malware dictionary of everything they've uncovered, brings it down to your computer, and it says, this is everything that we're aware of. So any action that's going on this computer, if it's a match to any of those known antivirus samples, we want you to block it. But since there's 4 to 5 new malware samples that are made every single second, just in this sentence I've said, your antivirus dictionary is out of date. And the antivirus companies can't keep up with this speed. The attackers know that. They, change a little bit of the code, send out that new strain of malware, and they know that there's a chance that antivirus isn't going to pick it up and somebody might open that up in an email. That's 350,000 new samples every single day. Most antivirus solutions are updating that dictionary about once a day or so. So 350,000 new samples that it doesn't know about. So we're going to take a little break here and pause for a couple questions. See if anybody has anything, if you're all still awake or if I totally scared you.
There's some great information there and some really good reminders, especially with the passwords and things like that. I mean, we've all had issues sometimes remembering passwords and you think, well, I'll just make it a little easier to remember. But there's a lot of ways to have more complicated passwords now, and makes it a lot easier to stay out of trouble. And the emails are interesting too, because boy, it's sometimes, I know I've gotten some that look so legitimate, and you accidentally click on it, and fortunately nothing bad, really bad has happened. But I know there's a couple times I've phoned Fusion going, guys, help. I think I might have done something. And it can happen in you're first thing in the morning, maybe you're not exactly half awake, and
or you're under a deadline.
Yeah, okay, I'll just click on that, and it's like, wait a minute, it's not going anywhere. What's going on here? So, but there's a lot of companies out there that are willing to help out, and it's always good to have someone on speed dial for sure, to in case.
And Tom, the thing I love that you said is that you immediately picked up the phone, called Tertius, and said, I think I might have done something. That's the kind of culture that you want to create around security, so that people are not afraid to report those types of things. Because as we saw in the Anthem breach, the mean time to identify that an attacker is inside your network is 197 days. Think about what they can do in that time. It's crazy. It's equal parts fascinating and terrifying to me, the way that they keep changing and revising their attack methods. And we have to be hyper vigilant all the time. The attackers only have to be right once. So if you're like a lot of companies, this is probably how you feel, like, oh gosh, that is a lot of information, and how does she talk so fast? When does she breathe? So now what? We've shared with you some of the ways that the attackers are coming after the information, what that information is, some tips, tricks, stories. Let's talk about what you can do to bolster some better cybersecurity. Also, I know the recording is available. We do have a copy of an awareness webinar takeaway sheet if you want a little summary of the information that we covered today. The first thing is that we want to talk about how technology alone is not the only solution. You do need technology elements in place, and ones that go beyond antivirus and firewalls. But in our opinion, digital security is made up of three fundamental layers. Some people say people process technology. We say foundation of policies, procedures, and plans, culture, where everybody in your organization understands how to be strong cyber defenders. They are not afraid, like Tom said, to reach out and say, hey, I think I just did something. And then technology solutions beyond the traditional antivirus and firewalls. There's no technology silver bullet for digital security. I wish I could just say, sign up for this, install it, turn it on, you're good to go. It doesn't exist, and thank God, because I wouldn't be here today. So instead, we take a defense in depth approach, where we put a series of different defensive mechanisms that are all layered together, so that if one of those items fails, we have another stopgap in place. So it's like layers of protection that you would have in a castle, right? So you would have the moat, you would have your ramparts, you'd have a drawbridge, you'd have towers with archers. So you've got a bunch of different layers of protection so that your sensitive castle isn't breached. We like to compare digital security to physical security, because you probably have a lot of these protections already in place. You've protected, the outside of your business. You control entry by installing cameras, and you have alarms that alert you for any, suspicious activity. You've got door or window sensors. You probably store your assets or valuable inventory in some locked, secure place. You typically have a good, strong employee handbook, so employees know what's expected of them. You do some safety training, you have building inspections, but the average loss from a burglary is about $2,000. When we look at digital security, the average loss from a data breach for a small business, we're not talking about the enterprise ones that are up in the millions of dollars, it's $160,000, and it works its way up from there. I think the most recent estimate I saw was about $200,000. So in the exact same way that you protect a building, a company can protect itself and its digital assets. So you can install some control measures that prevent entry. You can have an alarm system that activates if there's any suspicious activity. You can safely store all that confidential information, and have strong cybersecurity policies like that technology and data use policy I mentioned. And then having a response plan so that if something does happen, you can recover quickly quickly, and then good user training and testing. But in most cases, we found that small businesses look like this. They might have a firewall and antivirus, but that's about it, because they probably feel like this guy right here is tough to navigate. There are so many different technology solutions. It just sounds like a bunch of alphabet soup, tons of acronyms and just a lot of different vendors and solutions, and it just gets really overwhelming really quickly. So the approach that we like to take is defense in depth, using what we learned before about how the attackers operate and what you know about your business. You want to take a personal approach. There's no one size fits all for cybersecurity. Depending on the size of your organization, the type of information that you store, whether you have compliance requirements or not, your cybersecurity program is going to look totally different than someone else's. So in this model, we're trying to stop that little hacker at the top from getting down to the bottom and taking our information, whether it's our sensitive information off of our servers, physical or cloud, or demanding some ransom in Bitcoin from us. So how do we do that? The first step is a threat model and risk assessment. We want to make sure that we can develop a program that brings our organization to an acceptable risk level, but for a reasonable investment. We're not trying to shoot ants with elephant guns here. So let's figure out our weaknesses. What data are we trying to protect? Who are we protecting it from? Where does it live? What are the risks if something were to happen, and how bad are the consequences? Like, what is the potential downtime associated? How much would that cost? How likely is it that we would need to protect against that threat? How much trouble am I willing to go through to prevent those types of consequences? And what are the things that we can do to prevent them? The next step, once we've identified what our risks are and the likelihood of them, is to implement some of those solutions we've identified. So if we identify that business email compromise or phishing attempts are a likely threat, they're likely to come in through email, we want to try to stop those attacks from reaching us. So we have our firewall, our antivirus, we have email and spam filtering for our email client, trying to keep those attacks from even reaching our inbox. So we're looking in our email logs for any indicators of compromise, changing the rules, things like that. We monitor our systems to see if there are any known vulnerabilities on our networks, any known holes or exposures in our computers, our websites, our networks that we can fix. If we want to take it a step further, we can actually hire an ethical hacker to break into our network and see how bad things could actually be if we were compromised. We monitor for stolen credentials. So if your company email addresses and passwords are available on the dark web, you can find that out. And I think, Tertius, you can actually do a scan for them if they're interested in finding out if their information is compromised. So you want to keep that in mind. And especially if you're using a lot of cloud applications are just someone else's server. So the keys to the kingdom there are your passwords. So we want to make sure, again, unique passwords that haven't been compromised in two-factor authentication. We can scan websites for vulnerabilities or malware injections. I actually worked with a funeral home right outside of New York City at the height of the craziness of this pandemic, where the hospitals just couldn't even keep up. And this funeral home's website was delivering drive-by malware to all these people that were going to read their loved ones' obituaries at a time when they couldn't have funerals. It was an absolute PR nightmare. So terrible. The next step here in our defense in depth is having proper authentication, training, and policies in place. So two-factor authentication is one of those examples. Let's think about how these attackers operate. So I want to attack Defendify, so I'm going to do some research on the company on LinkedIn. I'm going to find someone that's in HR or a recruiter or an operations manager, someone that I can specifically target with a spear phishing attack. And then I'm going to craft an email with a malicious PDF and send it to that person. So maybe it looks like it's a resume, or I need you to look at this payroll information, and I fire it off. Hopefully, our employees have clear guidance in those policies on how we use technology, what our processes are in place, how to handle those types of requests, reaching out and verifying. We also receive notifications about cyber-related scams and topics, so we know what those attackers' current tactics are. We also do ongoing phishing training. So we're launching monthly fake emails at all of the employees, not with the intent to trick them, with the intent to build up their muscle memory in recognizing when these attacks are coming in. So they'll remain hyper vigilant throughout the month. They never know when the test's going to come in, and they never know if it's the test or a real phishing attack. So if hopefully the email filtering keeps that attack from reaching their inbox. But if it does get there, then we want to make sure they've been trained and they can just immediately delete that email. And then they also receive timely, up-to-date awareness training videos about recent breaches, emerging scams. Just like Tom mentioned earlier, our awareness video this month is about malicious macros in email attachments. That email went out on the first business day of this month. And that afternoon, we had an employee of a company we work with call us up and say, I think I might have messed up. And we said, what's going on? They said, I get this invoice every month from this company. Normally, I just open it up. This time it asked me to enable the content. I didn't think anything of it because they always send me the invoice. I did it. It didn't do anything. The attachment didn't open up. They watched the awareness video and they said, uh-oh. So now they're in the middle of, instead of 197 days later, trying to figure out, what that damage that was done from that email. So because of all this ongoing training and reinforcement, we want our employee to say, you know what, I just got a request about payroll. I'm going to give the CFO a call really quickly and just verify that he did actually send this request. And then hopefully our employee realizes it didn't come from that person and they don't open the attachment. Crisis averted, right? But employees are human. I've even failed a phishing simulation. We get just duped by all those psychological triggers. So if the attack is successful, we're under caffeinated, meeting a deadline, totally stressed out, moving too quickly, and we open that email and the malware starts to function. Hopefully the devices are patched so there aren't any vulnerabilities to exploit. We also want to have advanced endpoint protection on those computers that is capable of identifying certain signs that something bad is happening so that we can stop it on that endpoint computer level. So our last resort here is to contain it at that workstation level and have a team that's doing 24/7, 365 monitoring and looking for that suspicious activity. But if we don't have that last line of protection in place and the malware does start running on the computer, a ransom message pops up and encrypts our files, then our employees, we want to try to, as many ways as possible, prevent something like this from happening. But if we spill the milk, we might cry a little bit, but we're not going to throw away the whole cow. So we want our employees to be able to immediately start following those steps in the incident response plan, know how to shut down the computer, get it disconnected from the network. The quicker they can do that, even if you have a great IT team, you still have to get on the phone with them, connect with someone, they have to remote in and then do the containment. The quicker you can get that isolated, the less devices you have to restore, the less people you're paying while they're not working, and the less financial damage. So if we have good backups in place, we can quickly restore that computer, get everything back up and running, reduce that impact and downtime as much as possible. If it's the new double extortion ransomware, then in that case, we're stuck between a rock and a hard place. We can't really restore from backups. So in that situation, we want to have really good cyber insurance to be able to recoup our damages. We also want to be in a good place to prove to our cyber insurance company that we have put forth a really strong effort to maintain a proper cybersecurity program with multiple layers of those preventive measures so that our claim doesn't get denied. I can tell you a lot of horror stories, but I don't want to scare you any more than I already have. And the last thing I'm going to leave you with is I want you to think about the way that you look at cybersecurity. It's not just a project. It's not something you do once. It's not the Norton antivirus that you buy off a CD at Best Buy 10 years ago. You plug it in, you install it, and you walk away. And then everything's protected. This is a posture that everyone in your organization has to take from the top to the bottom. Even if you've got a phenomenal IT team who takes cybersecurity really seriously, all it takes is one clicking time bomb employee who doesn't take it seriously or just doesn't have the knowledge and education to put your whole organization at risk. So everyone needs to adopt that attitude or posture and really take cybersecurity seriously in this day and age. So, Tertius, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Shanna. Again, I'm always speechless after I've seen this presentation because it's very real, correct? And again, just a few highlights I want to make is, again, if there's anything you take away, what Shanna said earlier is that two-factor authentication. These phishing simulations are very real. I know at some point in my life, and not to my own fault, but LinkedIn was compromised, and that's how my email got compromised. And it's just not a nice place to be at. And the phishing ones are so real, like even with the LinkedIn ones that we've used for our clients to put them through the test. there's very ones that you see on a daily basis where you go on LinkedIn and said, hey, you have so many people viewed your profile, and boom, you just click on the circle in the middle and off you go. And that's one that caught a lot of our clients. So definitely, again, I'm grateful for you, for the fact that you're here. So you already take the first step. As this is like we say, a multi approach with this, the foundation, cultural and technical aspects. We have these 3 tools, and I think Shanna will throw in the password one in there as well. But you can email me if you have my personal email address, as I know some of you have. Just email me. We can get these out to you and put it to use. And again, it is free. There's no obligations, and it's just, I think, our way to just say, please take this seriously, and again, very, very introduction comment that Shanna made there. I'm not sure if you guys picked up on that, but this stuff you can use is personal applications at home as well. And I think that's very important, especially what's out there on the web now, especially if you have children in your family. So the next slide, I think, shows our email address, my phone number there as well. So please, some of my clients even just email me their emails and say, hey man, is this okay to open? So we're here to help. Again, this is a knowledge-based approach, and that's what we want to give you and get out of this. Thanks again, Shanna. I think, wow, again, wonderful.
Exactly. Thank you, Tertius. Thank you, Shanna. This is going to be one of those videos that is going to get watched in the future, because people are going to circle back on this, and I still don't even think that in this day and age that we do take cybersecurity seriously enough. Like it's one of those, it's not going to happen to me, or it can't happen to me, and one slip of the click and it can happen to you. So some great information here today. Before we close, are there any questions from the group? You've got the experts right here. If there's something that is on your mind, be sure to do it and let us know. And if not, we want to thank Tertius and Shanna for joining us today and providing so much great information. Thank you for everyone for joining us. Again, keep checking out the city's YouTube channel for great information, including recordings of these sessions. And again, next session is on February 25th. Next week will be Growing the North. Keep an eye on our chamber website for upcoming sessions. And if you have ideas, or if you know people that could provide some great information to the community, let us know as well, either at the chamber or at the city. So thanks to the city of Grande Prairie, and on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce, we wish everyone a much warmer, hopefully, weekend. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.